Okay, hello, ABL fans of the ABL, the ABL 4, the ARL Fluke. Any of you guys that are in any of these armchair leagues that might have had some skin in the lotteries tonight, welcome. I've got Tyler who's in some of those leagues. I've got Tony who's in a couple of those leagues, and we're just gonna, do some discussing and talking on how we feel about our picks. Somebody's got me. Is that me that has me going? Oh, it is. That's so terrible. Bad, bad pod move. There we go. I was hearing myself in my own ears because I had the damn YouTube up. So, anyway, Tyler, start with you. You've got a team in ABL, of course. You've got a team in ABL 4. You had a couple of potential good picks in the ABL tonight. Maybe almost certainly didn't go the way you would like. Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah, I mean, not even a little bit. Is about as bad as it could have gone. But that's part of the game. That's just kind of what happens. It's what why we all play. They say, right?
What did you end up exactly? Did you get 7 and
7 and 14?
Like
so my 2 overall got 7, and my 11 overall got 14. So about as bad as it could have been, but is what it is. We'll see if we can make something of it.
Have you like I'm sure knowing you've done some FYPD prep already, but like does that throw like a serious wrench into what you've been looking at? Like,
yeah, I mean it throws a wrench into it just in the fact that I was hoping obviously that top 2 pick would be, I mean, top 3 would have been great, but even top 5, because then theoretically I felt like I can maybe trade up into the top 3 if I felt like it. Now being down at 7, like that's just, I feel like including that in a trade for a top 3 pick potentially, I would be paying more than I probably want to at the end of the day. So from that standpoint, it's disappointing because I was really hoping to get, even if I had to pay a little bit more to get it, I was really hoping to kind of get one of the top tier players from the draft this year, but just not looking like it's probably going to happen. Even though I saw Joe and Adam put up 3 and 4, or at least they're looking to trade 3 and 4, which again sucks because it's like just give me 3. You can take 7. Your freaking first round pick. You know what I mean? It's just like, man, I wish I could have got it, but it is what it is.
And 7 too. Like I know this is regarded as a really good first year class, but still like that 7 is like right outside that range of where a lot of people consider like the elite to be, the first 5 or 6 really in this year's class. And then you have the one that's like right after that. For even the people that believe it's 6, you still just get that one. Yeah. Maybe something weird happens, and you get a guy that you really would have liked.
Knows.
But
who knows?
Yeah, just does kind of suck. I of course did not have an ABL first round. I don't have a pick in the first 4 rounds, so the suspense for me in ABL was a little less than. I had ARL picks. I didn't have a lottery ABL 4 pick. Tony, how did you end up doing tonight? You're in Fluke, you're in ABL 4.
I actually had a very similar situation to Tyler because I was looking at, you said, I'm looking at ABL. You had what? It was 13 balls and you ended up with pick 7. So I'm going to, if you click on the bottom on the ABL 4, I'm the Cubs. I had 12 balls and ended up with 9.
Ooh. Yeah.
So very similar situation where it's like, oh boy, I was hoping to get one of those higher picks, like, Tyler's reference, at least maybe top 5, you'd think, third most balls, something like that.
Yeah.
9's kind of brutal, but it is what it is. What can you do about it? So.
Yeah.
So Tony, for you, does getting probably like a considerable later pick than you were kind of hoping or expecting for, does that make it more likely that you will look to trade it? You don't have to answer that if you don't want, but
no, I will. It'll actually go into the dynamic of the 2 different leagues. Since 4 is a reset where ABL is not, you know what I mean? Because Tyler, your pick at, 7 you said in ABL. I mean, you'll probably have that guy on your roster, hopefully, 5 to 7 years? Hopefully. You think, right? You know what I mean? Like you'll hopefully get to see him and then maybe give him a max contract and stuff like that. Where in 4, I mean, that pick at 9 could be on my team 1 year, 2 year. That's it.
That is
So
true.
it's a little different there. That's why you'd hope to maybe get one of those top picks. But
Sam asked if we knew that Bama and Michigan are in OT. Is that the NBA G League? Is that what that is?
No, that is the Rose Bowl. That is the Rose Bowl. And for those who do care, Michigan did score. And now Alabama has the ball, and they have to score a touchdown. Yeah, that's the Rose Bowl.
I know those. I know that those are usually big. I know Bama's always. Bama's always one of the big college football teams. I know Michigan has been in the past. I guess I didn't know they were now, but. Yeah, I just can't get it up for college football. I just can't do it.
I get
Sorry, Sam. Sorry, Sam. Sorry, Tony. Let's gloss over the ARL real quick before I would do a little more ABL talk probably. And Flug is, I don't know, inconsequential in the grander scheme of the armchair network leagues, at least for me. And I'm in Flug, but it's a little bit smaller league. It's straight roto. There's not as much action, not as much big trades or anything, but quick rundown of Flug. I actually, Tony, when I said earlier, I finished almost last in Flug, and I got a terrible pick. Finishing crappy in Flug does not ensure you more balls. Yes. That is the reason. Yeah. And that's kind of the funky twist or one of the funky twists of Flug. It's straight roto and stuff, but yeah, finishing crappy does not ensure you a better pick, which and I'm fine with. It's like the one league where my balls and pick went the way they should have, kind of, it seems like, where I had no balls and I ended up with a crappy pick. ARL I bitched about a little bit with let's see, what was I? Yeah, I was Tampa Bay. I had 14 and I ended up with the 14th pick. Nothing too crazy here. I mean, Toronto with 2 balls getting 3. Congrats to them. The Texas with only 3 balls getting a 10. That's pretty nice, but not like anything terribly funky in ARL. And neither one of you guys are in ARL, so not going to spend a ton of time talking about that here. Moving back to ABL now, Tony.
Yeah,
you could still potentially have insight into ABL chatter because you know how ABL runs. All of the guys in it just as well as we do, pretty much. We did not have. I talked to Tyler about this earlier tonight. Like, were we expecting when Duke kind of hit the switch on trades after the lotteries? Who was expecting a lot of action and who wasn't? I was kind of disappointed that there wasn't a lot of action. There's really been very, very little action. Does that surprise you at all, Tony? Like, knowing the ABL, do you think that it's like a factor of guys getting a little wiser, or would you have thought there's been 2 very small trades, like no big names?
If I recall, there's no trading since the regular season ended, right? If I recall the rules of that league, like once the playoffs start, trading freezes. And was there a small World Series window, or how did that work again?
Oh, there was something because I dealt Bobby Witt to Sam somehow. Yeah, there is a.
It's a window from. Yeah. It's when our playoffs start. There's no more trades, but then it reopens up until the actual end of the real life World Series.
Yeah, which is like a week or 2 period.
Yeah, it's not super long. It's maybe
a big window,
maybe a few weeks. Yeah, but then it's essentially been closed since the end of the World Series.
Beginning. I mean, we're talking about 2 months.
Yeah,
right. I'm roughly speaking. To me that does shock me because of the trading activity in that league, that you've had that long of a period to sit on your roster. Like you said, Tyler, earlier, 90% of your roster is going to be at the auction. Now, would you have said, okay, would your mind maybe have changed if you said you got a top pick, or would you have said, I want to keep on to it? Now, knowing you could have dealt a top pick to address that 90% need, or what?
No, I know me personally, and I guess I don't know how Joe and Adam are thinking about, trading their picks, but I was personally not looking to trade, especially that, the top 2 pick, who was going to be a top 3, 4. I was not looking to trade it at all, had no desire to trade it. I wanted to be able to have the prospect capital, so to speak, in drafting someone. And again, maybe that's different for other people. I always find it interesting for around this time of year when we've had teams that put their 1-3, 1-4 up immediately for trade. And it's more, it's really interesting to me because it looks like they look at picks much more as trade capital than they do specifically for their teams in general. And I know, as it's been documented many times, there's some owners that don't like to build up prospect pools. They just, kind of take what they have and they'd rather focus on MLB. And there's other teams that are the exact opposite. So it's always just really interesting to me because I was looking 100% to try and take someone that high and not trade it at all. And that obviously isn't the case for every other team.
Now, see, for me, like knowing how active I was and still am a little bit in the trade market, I would sometimes just post something out there just to see what I could get. And I mean, I'm not sometimes like, I'd be one of those people who'd post something and I have really no intention of trading it. But if someone comes and blows me away with something that could be viewed as, which a 1 through 5 in this year's class is viewed as super valuable, I'll see if someone blows me away. I don't necessarily want to trade it, but if it helps me, that's what I'm saying is I don't know, Joe or Adam, if that's their modus operandi, but for me, I would literally post something out there to see if maybe I do get blown away.
Yeah.
So
how about 2 years in a row now, the reigning champion getting a top 2 pick, seeing Brendan drop in there, kind of a, rich get richer. Not to say that it's not well earned by Brendan. I don't want to make it seem like there was, the Duke thing a couple years ago, that was just insanity, but still Texas with 12 balls like that. That was,
were both of them
not as
picks?
What's that?
Were both of them Sam's picks?
No, they weren't. And the Duke one was much crazier, like much longer odds. It is just kind of funny. I think Duke mentioned it like on the stream when he was doing it. Like, again, the reigning champion gets a really nice pick the next year. So it's like, not only do these guys have teams that obviously can compete, they also were able to, at some point swing deals that landed them really nice lottery picks as well. Like, it just kind of adds that extra layer onto one of these somewhat newer guys in Brendan being a solid player. And I do think I will say hi, if they're around, Evan and Kevin. It almost sounds made up that we brought in 2 guys named Evan and Kevin. Tom, White Sox Tom, new guy. White Sox most balls end up with the number 1 pick. So it'd be really interesting to see kind of what Tom does. I don't know the guy personally. He hasn't said a lot in the Discord, so I don't know what kind of like fantasy guy he is. He did post a picture, earlier. So like, is that some lean on what he might be thinking, or is he just trying to stir something up and get some? It'll be interesting to see what Tom does. The White Sox are a super interesting ABL team. They kind of were all year when we knew Harry was more or less gone, and then it became official, and then it's like, okay, so who's going to take this team over? What are they going to want to do with it? And then the team ends up getting the number 1 pick. So just a really interesting direction a team like that could go, loaded with prospects. So like, Tyler, if it was you, just put yourself in the White Sox shoes for a couple minutes. I don't know, if you've looked at their roster lately, I think we're all pretty somewhat familiar with it. Is that a pick that you would be looking to trade if you were the new White Sox owner? Would you be, hey, come and kick the tires and let's see what I can get for it? Or is that I'm going to take Scanes, I'm going to take Cruz, I'm going to take Yoshi's not going to be out there. He's going to be in the auction, right?
Yeah,
Yoshi's in the auction.
I believe so. Yeah. I mean, I think there's a very interesting, I'm not sure what the right word is, but there's a very interesting difference maybe between pick trade capital and prospect trade capital in the league.
Sure.
People look at first round picks, I feel like, relatively on a similar scale. So even the the best team in the league, their first round pick is looked at on a relative scale, relatively similar to another first round pick in the first round somewhere. Obviously 1-1 and 130 are very different, but just in terms of a sliding scale versus you look at the player drafted at 1-1 versus the player drafted at 130. I think that is a much bigger gap. And people look at that from a prospect perspective as well, that some people like certain prospects, other people don't like certain prospects. You can't really say that about a draft pick because a draft pick's a draft pick. So for me, if I'm them, I'm probably not trading it. I'm taking who I think is the best fantasy player in the draft. And then after probably the auction, then, after the auction's over, after both are over, I guess is what I should say. After both are over, then maybe you say, hey, I have all these prospects and see, which are garnering interest and where I can get the best deal because I have so many. That's probably where I would start because my guess is that it might be tough for him to start competing this year. At least competing at the high level. Maybe right. He's competing for a wild card or something. But if he makes moves, that could change things for sure.
He's got a lot of prospect capital on that team. A lot of guys that we know people are interested in. We know well enough a lot of the guys in this network and stuff. We know who guys like. Some of them keep it a little closer to their chest than others, but the White Sox are a team that in a league with 29 other guys in a dynasty have multiple high-end prospects that would fetch probably multiple big league players in return if that's a route that Tom wanted to go. Again, I have no clue. I think it's going to be fun and interesting. The White Sox are probably the most interesting team, at least for me, and ones that have brand new owners going into 24. So yeah, no pressure, Tom, but going to be really curious to see what you end up doing with those.
A couple things to add on. Number one, I'm assuming, I don't know, Tom does not live in New Zealand or halfway across the world, does he?
I don't think so.
I think that's going to make it much easier for him to maybe move some said players. To kind of add on to what Tyler was saying is there's obviously a big gap between 1-1 and 130. Okay. But before the draft, the value of 1-1 or 1-5 or 114 is different than after the draft when 1-1 is Joe Smith, 1-7 is Bob Jones, and 1-9 is Jimmy Garcia. Whatever. You know what I mean? I'm just throwing now that you have something concrete attached to it, the value is probably actually more after it than before when it's just a number, because
like we said earlier, maybe Tyler gets a guy to drop to him at 1-7 that nobody saw coming. We because we spend a lot of time on the Discord with all I don't know how, I talk to Brendan all the time. I talk to Brendan a lot on that. I have no idea who he might take at number 2. I mean, I would like to speculate, but I really don't know. Will he be looking to deal it? Will he, if he makes the pick, who's it going to be? I really don't know.
I could spoil it for you, but I won't do that to him as much as
that's okay. Like yeah. Let's not.
I thought you guys were bitter enemies. You guys actually talk as friends, Tyler?
I'm gonna keep my mouth shut.
Tony, you should know. You know more than anybody. Tyler's a Midwest guy.
I know.
Upstanding Midwest gentlemen. We're all about respect and honor. So even if they were bitter mortal enemies, I just don't think Tyler has it in to throw him under the bus like that. If he does, maybe hit me up after the show. You could just let me know personally. No big deal.
Michigan won if you did care, either one of you.
Saw it.
Is that expected or unexpected?
They were the number 1 seed. I mean, they haven't lost this year. It wasn't that big of an upset.
Football playoff, anything can happen.
Yeah.
Now, if they tied, would they have split?
Tyler has no idea what you're going on.
I do. I do actually, but
okay. They have just cut the trophy in 2. Like King Solomon's baby or whatever the hell that was. What else, guys? I mean, I was hoping for a little more action. Yeah, go ahead, Tyler. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I randomly pulled a couple of things together that I thought were interesting. I know I had mentioned to you, Alan. I kind of just thought it'd be cool to speculate a little bit on draft stuff. I'm looking at, potentially, as I've talked to you about, some other cool ideas, potentially pre-draft, post-draft type stuff, but some of just like the initial research, which is 5 minutes of it, but a couple of things I thought were interesting, and this is ABL specific, obviously. But looking in the just free agency pool, and again, this doesn't take into account other people that could be dropped, other trades that could, whatever. There are 46 players currently in the draft who scored over 400 points last year, which again, you take that into account, it's about 1.5 players on average. And then there's, of those 46, 32 of them were bats and 14 of them were pitchers. 2 of those pitchers were relief pitchers. So just an interesting, not surprised by that split, because most people are going to be keeping higher end pitchers if they're at any sort of decent price, right? But the fact that there's still 12 starting pitchers out there that scored 400 points last year, I think is really interesting, and I think could play a really big role in the draft this year. Knowing that there's really only 12 at that kind of high end area versus 32 bats. I didn't get a chance to do the breakdown like positionally of where there might be some extra points yet, but obviously 32 bats is a lot. That's 1 per team. So it'll be interesting to see how much of an impact those potentially 12 pitcher prices end up impacting the bats prices as well. Because again, it's more than double. And then the other piece was looking at points per game, because obviously total points isn't the whole story, right? But a points per game piece is a big piece of it as well. And I took the threshold of 3.0 or higher for hitters and 10.0 or higher for pitchers. There are 58 total players that meet one of those criteria, 36 hitters and 22 pitchers. The interesting part about that from a pitching perspective, though, is that of those 22 pitchers that had 10 plus points per game, obviously none of them are relief pitchers. I just thought that was an interesting change from, you have 2 of 14 that scored over the 400, but obviously none of the 22 pitchers that have the 10 plus were the relief pitchers. So there's a few more extra pitchers actually that maybe they didn't score the 400, but they have that 10 plus point per game type scale. So interesting that there maybe isn't just 12 starting pitchers. Maybe there's 16 instead.
It's still not
so yeah, just kind of interesting. No, it's not. Which again, I think makes sense though, right? Because again, I'm talking about the higher end, right? Like you're looking at all these pitchers. Once all of them are drafted, you might have one on your team, right? Like at best, you have 2. So, well, it's not that many. There's plenty of other pitchers out there, just not as many that have the 10 plus points. So just 2 things that I thought were interesting going into the draft.
And yeah, that will change maybe a little bit after contracts and such happen. But it gives a little glimpse into the kind of scarcity that we might be talking about as we head into the auction. And I know, Tyler, you and I are both teams that are going to have some money to spend. I've got money. I think I've got about what I'm going to head into the auction with. I might cut Alec Burleson or somebody like that, and save $3 more. But how much do you know how much you're heading in with?
I have the second most in the league right now, which is crazy. I have 293 free again, which is the 360. So take 100 off of that. I have 193, but I'm still going to cut probably half my team that I have left. So I'll have well over 200 to spend, which again, I made trades this year, made decisions this year that were based around that. And I think the best part is I still feel really good about kind of the core that I'll have. I have a lot of younger guys, guys like CES, guys like Caminero that I'll get to actually play full time this year, which I'm super stoked about. And then I have kind of 3 younger pitchers that are all single digit for contracts, which is great. So I have a really good core, and I'm excited to see what I can hopefully do with the auction to set myself up, hopefully for a long time.
So what is that? How many spots are you projecting to have filled of your 26?
I can look for you real quick.
Gotta be happy. I mean, happy is but the Wander news today has to be okay news for the Caminero owner. You know, really anybody that has like a Rays infielder. I'm the Isaac Paredes owner. You know, like that just if there was any doubt before that he probably wasn't going to be part of that playing time logjam for the Rays.
Yeah, and he played every infield. He played second, third, and short last year. So I was pretty hopeful that they were going to plug him in at third just because they started doing that even before he got promoted. So I'm hopeful that it regardless of the news, it won't matter. That's my hope. But yeah, so I'll have most likely 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I'll probably have 11 players on my team.
And you still got, so I mean, you got 15 spots for roughly $200. I mean, rough math. I'm doing off.
Yeah.
I'll have more than 200. Yeah, I'll have more than 200.
Yeah.
What is the, having a vested interest in my pizza bet and Wander? What was that news?
He was arrested today. He was officially arrested down in was it Puerto Rico or the DR? I get those mixed up.
I think he was arrested in the DR. Yeah. He got arrested because he didn't show up to court, I think was the reason. So what that means, I don't know.
No real news, I guess, like no news about the case itself, but it's never a good sign when the guy replaces his lawyers and then gets arrested. So he doesn't try to flee somewhere with his connections and millions of dollars. It doesn't look good. It never looks good when one of your players is actually arrested, and detained in a foreign country somewhere, don't want to rush to judgment or anything, but it's a step in the wrong direction. If you are a Wander owner or perhaps had made a bet that Wander's going to hit 400 in the next 10 years, Steve might be looking to buy that out at some point. I know it's just a pizza bet, but yeah, a long-term pizza bet that's probably we're not going to be able to see come to full fruition. What else, guys? What else? I'm going to be ready for dinner here pretty soon. What else we got to yak about for a few minutes here?
Let me pull
Tony, is what are you doing on a pig toy? That sounds like a pig toy.
No, that's my dog. Earlier, did you hear my dog barking? It was about like 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, okay. I thought he was chewing on a pig toy right now.
No. Texas is playing Washington, and Texas's mascot is a big, huge bevo cow. And my dog thinks it can take on this ginormous longhorn cow on TV and is going to scare the cow away off the TV. So,
just protecting the castle, man. That's all. Just protecting the castle.
Yeah, best friend. Got to make sure. I was trying to pull up so ABL 4 had the biggest upset. I mean, even in the top 3 picks with 3 balls and 5 balls.
Biggest like lottery upset?
Yeah. Because I was just scrolling through each of them. Like that's what I was trying to go through. It was like, who was the biggest upset and
which one in ABL 4? The
well, those are. I mean, look, they had
Cleveland
3 balls and they got
one. Cleveland getting the 1.
And then 5 balls and pick 3. 5 balls really should put them at pick 11. If I'm doing my math right.
Yeah, somebody had mentioned, I think maybe it was Brian, that man, it's weird to see so many teams fall so far outside the range of their projected. But you know what? That's kind of not always an ABL 4, obviously, but that we kind of seem to have one, one league at least every year where that just kind of the outliers all seem to kind of hit at once. And it's interesting how that works.
Miami, the White Sox, and the Cubs, me, all 9th or 11th.
No. So I'm gonna Woody Page your ass, Tony. Yeah, I'm gonna say boom. I'm gonna hit the mute button on him. Is he okay? Yeah, it's okay. Say, I didn't realize I do have the ability. We could do an around the horn kind of thing here. I can mute you guys. I could just do that. I can. Yeah, I totally could do that.
Oh yeah.
I told Frank a while ago if we could do like an around the horn style but I need the ability to like give you guys points when you make a good point. I want to be able to tally that somehow so that everybody can see I thought you made a good point without me having to interrupt you and say, hey, that was a good point. Because
I'm sure they
that
have
would get old really fast.
There's a way that you can do some kind of overlay where you could put boxes by our cameras and just add text boxes in.
Yeah, I guess I could just change. Maybe if I could just change your names, where your name is, I could just tally that up. Oh man, this might have to happen. I
was actually muting my mic while you were, because I have a mute button that's very handy. Like I can just hit it. So
yeah, it wasn't you, Tony. It was the dog.
No,
I wanted to hear what you had to say. Yeah, but I do want to get this out. Tyler, did you want to talk about maybe you wanted to maybe bring the power rankings and stuff to pod format?
Yeah, if there's anyone who's interested for ABL specifically, I do my weekly power rankings, and this year we're looking at potentially bringing those to a weekly pod kind of thing. Nothing too crazy, but just maybe a half an hour pod every week. Haven't decided on much on like format or timing, exactly when it would happen yet, but the thought is essentially just to hopefully put a little bit more emphasis behind the rankings and how they're revealed, how we talk about them. My goal is to certainly have not just myself talk about them either, but just have potentially other people on too. So it'll be just kind of a cool thing that we're looking to do. I'm hoping I can maybe get something together to do a pre-draft type of ranking and then a post-draft type of ranking as well. Just to, again, kind of spice things up, keep things. This is something that I enjoy doing, and I know everyone else obviously does too. So something that hopefully we can get put together and get rolling, but that's the plan as of right now.
Awesome. Yeah, I agree. I was happy that Tyler kind of approached me and was asking like, do we want to do some of that on the channel and stuff? I'm down with putting more content on the channel. I think it's going to help get my personal fire going back again for doing some more pods and such for, specifically the ABL. I just can't handle doing it for all. I thought I was going to be able to I was going to do an ARL pod. I was going to do a 4 pod. I was going to do it for everybody. And I just, even working from home and stuff, I just don't have that in me. But Tyler, I appreciate you kind of kicking me in the ass, so to speak, as wanting to do this one tonight, wanting to do some lottery stuff. Tony, I thank you for being here, even not being in the ABL anymore, man. You talked a little ABL with us. So, of course I appreciate that. Last words before this is some lottery talk, nothing crazy here. Anybody,
excited to be back.
Yeah, man.
Here, I thought Tyler was going to make an announcement of he's going to offer his services for if you want power rankings for other leagues.
Tyler's in the school system. He doesn't get as much time off as we all think. We all think of like teachers and school people. They don't work. They only work a few months a year. I don't think that's the case for these guys. So
it is not.
I mean, when he's not working, he's just playing video games. So
True. True. That is the life.
Man, I feel like we could do another pod on the amount of times Tyler's probably had to have that fight with people.
Just a few.
Yeah.
Just a few.
Yeah, just a few, probably. All right, guys, I appreciate you both. And I think we were up at one point to 8 people watching. So anybody who's still watching, anybody that did, we appreciate that. And like we said, hopefully this is some forward momentum to getting some more content out there. We're happy to be back, and we're excited to be back. And let's have a good new year and a good new season.
Hell yeah.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Alan.
See ya. Thank you.